So Ben, what is the one thing that truly maximises the value of someone's home when they go to sell their property?
John, yeah, all right, straight in, like it. So if I was talking to the consumer, if I was advising someone, different area, let's say a family, friend, relative, someone who's out of my neck of the woods, I would say the thing you need to focus on is removing your internal bias. When you're selecting your agent, what you're going to do is you're going to allow your brain to trigger the adverts you've seen, the marketing you've seen, the brand familiarity in the local area, the boards you've seen in the town. You're going to think about a name you know, and the name you know isn't always the name that best serves you. Now, it might be absolutely 100%. The most well-known agent in your town might be the best operator. But really simple example, let's just say really established brand sells 10 properties a month, lists 10 properties a month and sells 8. 80% success rate. You think that's great. That's the brand for me because they're selling the most in the town every month. But actually, brand number 2, who lists 5 homes a month, sells all 5. And so they're 100% success and they are not letting down 20% of their clients. Now, John, as an agent, that's a ridiculous example. 100% success rate. We'd love it. But, just to sort of make the point, my view is after 20 years in agency, if I was advising the consumer, of course, I would advise, come talk to me. But actually, in the real world, as we've seen with large scale businesses over the last few years that spend a fortune on marketing and they spend a fortune on share of voice and they grow their brand exponentially, they don't necessarily best service the consumer. So my advice to the consumer is remove your bias, remove what you think you know, start from a base level of I don't know anything and do your research into the agent that does the best job. And now the best job, in my view, is the quickest conversion from on the market to under offer to exchange, assuming that 99.9% of properties go on to complete once they've exchanged. And it's their price performance. So if they do it quickly, that looks good, but you need to assess their pricing. Are they getting the pricing right, or are they just selling properties under market value? But if they're getting the pricing right and they're doing it quickly, that's the agent you should be working with, whether they opened their doors 3 weeks ago or whether they've been there 30 years. That's a really long answer I just realized I'm giving you there. But that's, in my opinion, advising the consumer. It's about removing your bias because we've all got those brands we lean towards, but are they best? Are they the right for us? Not always.
Why do you think a lot of sellers end up making that mistake of going with the agency that's been on the high street since God was a boy? Why do they do that, do you think?
Well, I think there's trust in a recognized brand. So if I walk past the same, let's go traditional, I walk past the same office and have done for 30 years, it's been here, I recognize the guys, they've been in there a long period of time. They have got case studies, they have sold properties. Actually, in the 30-year period, they probably sold the most properties in the town. But are they great right now? Not necessarily. But the consumer likes that. All of us, we lean towards safety, the vast majority. And safety sits in the realm of trust. And I trust a brand I recognize. If I ask you to think about a cola brand, you're only going to think of 1 or 2. Generally, it's because of the amazing work they've done on marketing. And so that business, without even realizing, it's been on the high street 30 years, they haven't necessarily done fantastic things in terms of marketing. They've just been present for the 30 years. So I think that's why most consumers do. Don't get me wrong, though. There's, they may recognize that they've sold something on the road or in the local area, or, a friend or a family member or a neighbor's had a good experience with them. The brand's been around 30 years. They're not all bad guys. I'm sure there are some absolutely wonderful brands that have been in the market for an extended period of time. But I think generally the consumer goes where they feel safest. And quite often that's an established brand. Not always, but quite often.
Yeah. And you mentioned research, doing research. What sort of research to remove those biases? What sort of research should a seller be doing?
So this is a bit of a minefield, actually. And this is why I really feel for the consumer, because there's so much data out there now that unless you're doing this full time, I think it can be quite a confusing place to be. So one of the pieces of advice I've given people in the past is decide to sell your home in 6 months, not right now. If you give yourself enough time, if time is on your side, you're in a position of power, you're in a position of strength, like most negotiations. The person that has time on their side inevitably can hold and hold and hold until they get the position they want. If you're a seller, my view is if you decide in advance, you can begin to track the market that's important to you and do your own research, as opposed to relying on the information you might get from the agent who's got a vested interest in presenting themselves in the best possible way. So you can get out there, you can meet all the agents, you know, like we did in the good old days. You want to buy a property, you walk up the high street and on a Saturday and you meet everyone and you talk about, you know, I'd like to see this, and this is our position. What I would be doing is tracking. I guess in any given town, there's not going to be more than half a dozen agents that are going to be right up there. These are the best 6. Select your 6. Allow your bias to kick in there. There are 6 that look good. And I would, on a monthly basis, manually do this because I'm a geek, but I'd recommend others do it because it's so easy, because most agents are on Rightmove. And whilst, you know, Rightmove, if you're an agent, you know, agents love to hate Rightmove. If you're a consumer, you might not know that, but agents are not big fans of Rightmove. But if you're a consumer, I completely see why you start your search there. It makes complete sense. Everything in one place. Look up those 6 agents, and every month, look how many properties they list, how many they place under offer, track that data. Also look at the price points. Now, you should, over a 6-month period, you should get a fairly good feel for what pricing strategy looks like in your area. Say this tongue in cheek as an agent. As a seller, you know how much you want for your home, which means you know roughly how much next door is selling for or down the road has. So you've got a good idea on pricing. If you look at an agent and you see that, oh, that's gone a bit cheap, go with your gut. It's quite possible that has been sold a bit cheap. You know, there might be a reason for it, there might not be. But I would do very manual research, because then I can trust it, then it's mine, then there's no bias. I'm looking at properties coming to the market, how quickly they go under offer. When it comes to decision time, I'm probably pulling in the best 3 to have a conversation with and interview them. And I'm hoping that some of them have got access to some good insight data that can prove statistics. Now, not every agent has access to that data, but they should be able to provide suitable case studies that match up with the stuff you've been doing in the background for the last 6 months. If it doesn't, then you're probably not dealing with somebody you should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree with you, because the heartache, pain, the emotional turmoil that a seller will end up going through, because sellers, obviously, they when they're interviewing agents, they believe agents must be professional about what they do. And they look at agents, in my opinion, and say, well, you're all equal in the sense that you all do the same job. And on the basis of that, you must all be the same. I remember there was a property that I knew nothing about, Colindale. So I was like, how can I possibly go and sell a house or a flat in Colindale? I know nothing about it. I don't know the bus routes. I don't know the other transport links. I don't know the amenities. I don't know the schools. I don't know who's running the businesses. I literally know nothing. But the seller was like, no, you've been recommended to me. I need you to sell it. And I was like, oh man, I can't, because I don't know. And if I take you down a path, I could get it completely wrong. But would you allow me to interview the agents in Colindale, and I will interview them and I'll select the best agent for you, and then you agree, and then we get it sold? And he was like, well, I don't really like that. But I was like, but that's the best it's going to be, right? So that's what I did. I literally interviewed 8 agents, and I asked them questions like, so for example, from market to offer, how long was that? Yeah. So how long was their average days on market? Once the actual offers come in, well, what was the offer to offer accepted ratio? What was how long did valuation? Sorry, I'll say that again. Offer to offer accepted ratio, accepted to exchanged ratio, and just all of these little questions that I was asking the agents there. And I literally whittled it down to like 3 within like the first day, carried 3 over. One was like, I thought he's all statistics, all process, but not really passionate enough. Another agent said to me, he dropped a ball. He said, look, I'll just tell a buyer what they need to hear to get the job done. And I was like, oh my God. And then the last agent actually was saying everything I was saying to my sellers in my area, Ladbroke Grove at the time. They marketed the property for 225. They sold it for 248. It was on the market literally about a week, and it was just so controlled and so manufactured and so process driven, because they're working with their methodology that they've been working with all that time. And he was just spitting stuff out, but it wasn't just that flat. They were doing it with their other sellers as well. And I was like, oh my God. Now, he said 225 on the market, but the flat's probably worth 200 grand. And the agent who said, I'll just tell the buyer what they need to hear, he wanted to market for 250. So he was trying to win my instruction by overinflating the price, but the other one wasn't.
Yeah,
And because I was in the game, I gave it to the fellow who was like, look, 200 is the real
yeah.
money, but we may be able to do something.
But you've hit on something there as well. So another thing that I would, again, the time is on your side. Don't assume you meet a handful of agents and you make a decision the next day. Let them work for the gig. So it's an interview. What I want to know is how tenacious are they? How much are they going to chase down this sale? Well, first, they need to prove how much they're going to chase down me to win the instruction. If they're going to work me, if they're going to call, if they're going to, borderline harass me, which I know is annoying, but actually that is what I want to see in my agent. How hard are you going to work to convert? Anyone can win a listing. How hard do you work to sell it? But actually, I want to see proof that the behavior I experience at the listing is the behavior I'm going to experience as a seller. You're going to work your applicant database. You're going to get people through the door. You're going to manipulate, I don't really like the word manipulate, but you're going to make sure you
mold
pull
and
people
shape
into the right pricing strategy. So, in your example, what we use in our business quite often is an offer over strategy. It works really, really well. We didn't used to use it in our old business. So my old business was a mass market agency, average price point about £500,000, sort of Middlesex, West London area. Fine in country business, average price point about £2 million. And what works really well is an offers over marketing strategy, roughly 10 to 15% below where we see the actual value. It encourages competition. It drives up offers. Sometimes people can be in competition with themselves to make sure they get that home because they recognize being marketed slightly under market value, but that strategy works. But back to my point and what you've raised really, John, is meet with your agent or the agent you think you're going to do business with a couple of times. Because I think back to when we recruited people, bearing in mind I'm a salesman, seasoned salesperson, and so actually most candidates I would meet would hate the first interview process with me, but people still get through the net because for a period of 45 minutes to an hour, anyone can be anyone they want to be. But you meet them two, three times, and you start to see who they really are. And so, you, John, when you were helping out that person, you were able to identify really early that agent's not the sort of person we want to work with. For the average consumer, it might make 2 meetings or 3 meetings for them to make that decision. We can spot the guys you shouldn't be working with really quickly. But I think time, remove bias, right agent gets the right result, which I know it sounds, pick the right agent. My point is the right agent isn't necessarily the one that your gut jumps to because you're just familiar with there's an awareness around them.
Yeah. So are we saying then that what actually truly achieves the maximum amount of money, right? Is because it's like what you're saying is you're interviewing, almost like if you were interviewing someone like an event planner for your wedding.
So look, the stats are pretty poignant, right? If you go on at the wrong price and you have to reduce your price, it will take twice as long to get under offer. So that's not my stats. That's Rightmove provide these sort of stats. So if you get the pricing wrong at round one, you want to go for that punchy price. If you've been, hyped up a little bit by the agent that's over-promising on a pricing strategy, if you get that part wrong, you're going to double the time to get under offer. And the double time is something like 76, 77 days at the moment versus roughly 35 to 40 days. So you're going from, just over a month for getting on for 3 months. That instantly, apart from doubling the time to sell, also guarantees you're not going to achieve the best possible price because no one pays the maximum price for a property that's been on the market 80 days. No one. Why would they? You need to get the pricing right at the start. You need your strategy right at the start. In order to do that, you need the right agent. And so you need to interview them absolutely robustly and make sure they understand, just my opinion, but they understand where the market sits right now and how we maximize the return on this sale, how we get that first impression right. You can't release a property to the market to get a first impression more than once. So let's get it right first time round. Let's make the impact we need to. What does that launch strategy look like? It might not be released to the market initially if you're unsure about pricing. So some of the stuff we work on is quite sort of niche. And so pricing can be quite difficult sometimes. And so rather than just go straight to the market, what we might do is say, look, this is absolutely our world, but there's a swing. Sometimes the swing could be £200,000 to £300,000. We don't want to get this wrong. So let us talk to 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 of our really active buyers who have been in the market. We're going to do some discrete viewings with them and we're going to get a feel. And we're going to give them a swing on pricing and we're going to see where the offers come in or if offers come in at all. And that, if something great comes in, from those 6, if the general consensus is about right, we can either look at what we've got on the table, or we can go to market knowing that we've got the pricing right. If we're wrong, we've done no damage to the property and we've exposed it to the wider audience. And that's how we assess getting the price right if we're not 100%. That said, pricing is not the most difficult thing in the world. If you want to do it properly, I believe there's enough out there now for even the most inexperienced agent to spend an hour compiling what they need to get the price pretty much right. So I don't think there's an excuse for overpricing other than maybe pressure from within the agency to win a listing, which has nothing to do with the consumer and everything to do with bad practice in a estate agency.
Yeah, no, completely. I always work on the basis that if you've been working as an agent in an area for longer than 3 months, now your stuff being niche, mate, is going to be a little bit different to your sort of 500 grand, 2 up, 2 down terraced house, for example, right? And if there's loads of them on a particular estate. But I always work on the basis of, if you've been working in an area for 3 months, you really should know the nuances between 1 flat or 2 flats in the same building, 2 flats in either side of the street, 1 house on one road versus another house on another road in the same postcode, right? You should really know the pounds per square footage for the good, the bad, the ugly, and those nuances that some roads carry a better price than other roads. So I say to sellers, if you're then looking, for example, you go Get Agent, and let's say Get Agent is got like the agency prices, what they're actually achieving. And that agent there is average over the last 12 months at 96.1% valuation accuracy rate. And that agent there is 97.3% valuation accuracy rate. Then my next question is, well, how long have they been on the market for, those particular properties? So to your point, 70, 80 days. Well, actually, that's not only is that agent inflating a price by 3.5% to 4% to win an instruction, if they do complete at that 96%, you then owe them a fee, which is going to take you even cost you even more money. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I mean, I completely. Once you've worked in the market for a period of time, I mean, it's one of the issues I think with estate agency in general, that we don't take the education piece seriously enough. It's a little bit shoot from the hip. We'll wing it when we get there. Like that agency, I tell the buyers what they need to hear. That sort of general approach. The consumer has a. There was a piece in the trade press today, the Veracity index, and we're 4th. Trust in our industry is at an all-time low. And I guess rightly so, actually, because these things don't come out. Stereotypes exist for a reason. There's enough consumers out there that have had bad experiences that they're not willing to talk about us positively. It doesn't help with the agents we seem to be throwing on TV as often as we do, who are doing no good for us. They're inexperienced. They want to swear every other word. They're not presenting a professional industry. But I think we need to take the learning, the development, the experience side a lot more seriously. And I don't just mean guys coming new into the industry, because as a 21-year-old when I started, I didn't arrive on day one and I didn't have an obsession around learning. That sort of developed over time. I think the people that are in maybe senior leadership, business ownership, management roles need to take responsibility for helping the new cohort upgrade, learn, get where they need to. I saw something really interesting on social media the other day. I don't do a lot of doom scrolling, but I did. And we work from home culture, which I'm not a big fan of, mainly because I think it's much more difficult to learn an industry like ours sitting in a room on your own. The best things I've ever learned is been sitting next to someone who's brilliant, has a great phone call. I hear that and I think I'm going to do that every time now. Being around really high quality experienced people is what's helped me in life. Working from home, that's just not going to happen. This piece on social media was a guy saying it's completely unfair because the experienced people that are working from home, actually, in truth, they probably can get, it wasn't a state agency base, it was a different sector, but they could probably get through their work in a quicker period of time. So they're making maybe more money, working slightly less hours, but they're not fulfilling their actual job. And their job is not just to do their role, it's to help the next cohort do theirs. And working from home, that doesn't happen. And it really struck a chord because I've been saying that for the last couple of years, that I'm worried about the future of our agency. If we genuinely go, and I was going to say self-employed agency, just to be clear. I don't know if the consumer's even that aware of this, but there are so many different models in agency now. You've got traditional employed, you've got sort of working from a service office environment, you've got high street agency, you've got self-employed agency working under a more sort of North American style brokerage. Now, in our business, we have an employed team, we have self-employed operators who work in different geographies, and then we have business partners. So I'm not anti any model. What I'm anti is allowing standards to drop. Standards, I think the last 20 years, things have started to move forward, but we're at that pivotal moment right now where if self-employed really explodes, because the self-employed model is, there's a lot more talk of it certainly on social media. If that happens and we end up with a whole load of new people coming into the industry, are they going to learn the best way to operate? Who's going to be doing the training? This all well and good saying you're going to attend a seminar, you're going to attend a training session. We do training in our business at least 90 minutes once a week, plus all our sales meetings. If you take that away, our guys are still learning every day because they're around each other. You've got that. It's the holistic stuff. So that's a real concern for me. It's a good point you've made, John, that within a few months, your goal should be, what's the line? If you're not earning, you're learning. So in the first 3 months, you're not going to earn a huge amount of money because you're building your database, your pipeline. But whilst you're not earning, you've got to make sure you're learning. And yeah, I think you really hit something there.
Yeah. And so overall, what we're actually saying is here, and I love it because I also take the attitude, and again, you may say, no, you have a slightly different take on this, but I take the attitude of when I'm valuing a property or doing, I don't like this term market appraisal because it's too loose for me. So I like valuation because I want people to be pinned to the wall on what they're saying. Do you know what I mean? Right. But I also believe that me as an agent, I am interviewing the seller just as much as that seller's thinking they're interviewing me, because I'm trying to gauge exactly whether that seller is going to be completely wholeheartedly right, brilliant. Yeah, there may be a few hiccups on the way, but can we actually work together? Because this is going to be a long-term relationship. Or am I just going to be pulling my pants down for somebody to tell me to jump, and then I say how high?
Yeah, there's plenty of bonkers sellers out there. I'll give you that.
Yeah, absolutely. But from a seller's perspective, what I don't believe they do enough, and I think this in a nutshell is maybe what you're trying to say, but tell me if it's not. I think you're also trying to say what actually achieves maximum money is a seller must also interview the agent.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, if you think about what agents talk about quite a lot, and what gets thrown up quite a lot is the race to the bottom in terms of a fee point. Agency is in an ideal world, the seller comes in and spends a day in our business and realizes just what we do, how hard we work, how the level that we go to deliver service, to create marketing, to expose the property to the widest possible audience. We've become commoditized. I get it. We're our own worst enemies. We're allowing that to happen. We're reducing our fees. And in every industry in the world, when there's more competition, service standards rise. In agency, more competition, let's just reduce our fees. And so what message are we sending to the consumer? I want to get you the best possible price. Okay, well, I'll only work if you charge 1%. All right, deal. So they've out-negotiated me at round one. So they're better negotiators than I am on my own fee. If I can't look after my own money, how am I going to look after getting them the best possible price? So there's so much around that piece for me where we've got to explain to the consumer, we've got to justify our fee. I like the word justify. I think it's important that we justify our value. The consumer, they think when they're interviewing their agent, is who can I get to do it for the cheapest?
Yeah. And
that's where our problem lands. Because they're not interviewing, they're really just who's going to go lowest. And for me, it's just crazy to think that my most prized asset, other than the kids, most expensive asset I own, I'm going to give it to the person who'll do it on the cheapest. That for me is crazy. But
yeah.
You got to quantify effectively. We used to say a line in our old business where we're a much larger lettings organization, and the landlord client or prospective client would ask for a reduction on fee. And they talk about negotiation, and we say, well, look, okay, if you want to reduce the fee, then we need to look at a negotiation, because right now what you're asking for is a discount. We do all of this, but you want us to reduce our fee. So let's look at the stuff that you want to reduce, and then we can maybe do that fee. And it would, genuinely, it would be confusing for them to think, oh, wow, yeah, okay, we're actually negotiating. I was asking for a discount. Why would I discount? Are you going to give me a discount on the rent? Is the tenant going to be discounted just because they asked for it? Or do you want us to actually get the best possible price or whatever it might be?
Yeah.
So I think there's a load of education around helping the consumer to understand not all agents are created equal. They don't all do the same thing. Some will outperform others. In our business, sorry, I don't have it for 2023 because we're only in our month 11. We've got another month to go. But for the whole of 2022, 82% of all the properties we sold had been on the market with another agent in the previous 3 weeks. So 4 out of 5 of our sales had been on with other agents. Now, we've built our business around working on the properties that other agents struggle to sell. It's not the best pitch to a consumer who's coming new to market, because every consumer believes they've got the best on the road and of course they're going to sell. But for those guys that really, really struggle to sell, maybe they're going the wrong price, or maybe the agent is just the wrong timing, or it's released in the wrong way, or whatever it might be, or they maybe just had a bad run of luck. It could be that sometimes. 82% of properties that we sold, 4 out of 5, had been on with another agent. So you can't say it's the market. In that, you have to argue that it's the agent's work. And the easiest thing to say is, well, you must have sold them at a lower price. 7 out of 10 were released to the market at the exact same price. We haven't reduced the price. We've released at the same price as the last agent had. We've just run a different marketing strategy, a different exposure strategy. We've got a new round of buyers in there. And in truth, I believe so much in sales skills. And I know nowadays, for some reason, agents frown on sales skills. And I think it's awful that we describe ourselves as we're all about marketing and all about customer service, but we don't talk about sales. I don't know why we can't be all of that. And great sales skills are absolutely invaluable to the consumer. That's what your client's instructing you to do. Get the best possible price. Lovely photos, lovely video, lovely marketing, lovely feedback calls. At the end of the transaction, what's the thing they remember? Are they sold? What price did you get me? That's the two. That's what they hit. So, I'm big on justification to the client. This is why it does cost more to work with our business, but our results sort of speak for themselves.
Absolutely. If you're doing 4 out of 5 properties, you're getting them sold where they've actually come to you. 7 out of 10 of those, you're launching exactly the same price as the others, right, that have been on before. That's knowledge, know-how, expertise, experience, being able to see the punches coming, methodology, strategy. That is all of those things. And by the way, looking at the individual property and making a plan for that individual property, not just, oh no, it's there's something else 5 miles down the road that's the same, so we're going to market the same price. No, this is why they're paying more money, right, Ben?
Yeah, absolutely. Personal service gets thrown around a lot, but in our very specific market, very rarely are 2 properties the same. But actually, even if I go back 5 years, the other business, lots and lots of very similar properties, but timing, experience, what's on the market right now, so many things determine how you're going to play the scenario. And you said it already, experience allows you to see the lay of the land and take the best route. I think it sounds unfair, but if I'm selecting an agent, I said earlier on, even if they've been only in the town 3 weeks, I'm assuming the person who's running that agency, if they're doing exceptionally well, has got a lot of experience behind them. It's very rare I meet someone who's only been in this business a few months and I think that's the best agent I've ever met. Normally, it's the guys that have been around a long time. They understand the game. They see that business is long term, and they appreciate what it's really about, as opposed to, you and I, we do quite a lot on social media, but we know also social media is a part of what we do. It's not everything, and if we're talking to the consumer, it absolutely plays a part in the marketing strategy right now. But there are big pieces that we need to know intrinsically that, some of the newer agents coming in, I see them and I think they're going to build a business purely around a couple of social media platforms. And my advice to them is it's a bit deeper than that.
Make sure you have a mentor that's been there, done that you are paying potentially in order to give you right advice. Absolutely. And I always say as well, there's nothing wrong with a new agent cutting their teeth on someone else's dime. So they're getting paid a 20, 25 basic. They're able to make loads of bloody mistakes but just about before they're about to make a mistake, like you said earlier, someone in the building is able to say, whoa, stop, before you do that, this is going to happen. So at least then they're just cutting their teeth 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is, as I did. Yeah.
And so did I.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. That's the way it's got to be. This is too high risk of business to be given the keys to a £500,000 asset and to crack on, see how you get on. There's there's too much risk around that. Like you say, cut your teeth working for a good business. And by a good business, generally I mean who's got a good head of the branch or someone in the room. That's what I would advise as a good business, not necessarily a brand that's been there 100 years or even a large corporate. Both actually could have the best. I'm looking at the great sales manager, great lettings manager, great branch manager, or independent business owner, because they're going to care about developing you and helping get the best out of you, and that will help turn you into a great agent. I'm certain of that.
Absolutely. Right, Ben Madden, mate, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. You've been excellent and massively insightful, and I love the fact that you are taking the attitude of sellers, please interview your agents. That's amazing, mate.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Right, end of podcast.